The pressure on Lane Kiffin is huge, and I have only one reason to think it wouldn't work.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. It is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, the number one sports podcast network out there. Thank you all so much, especially my everydayers, for helping make that the case. Notre Dame makes a splash hire on its staff, and some folks think that they're taking the escalator up to the top of the sport. Maybe. You got to contend with LSU, of course. And the 2026 playoff picture, Brian Smith and I will talk about that on today's show, which is brought to you by our friends over at Mazda. They put the same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work. That defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. So, Lane Kiffin has brought in 40 players to LSU. 40. 4-0. Guess if you're reading left to right, should that be that way? Yeah, there we go. That's 40. I don't know. One of those is. I'm not a weatherman. So, what they have done, not just bringing in a lot of players, but bringing in guys like Jordan Seaton, who had plenty of schools, including Oregon, hot in pursuit, literally. Dan Lanning and their offensive line coach up in Eugene, Alik Terry, flew down to Atlanta because Jordan Seaton wasn't going to take a visit to Eugene. They wanted to go down and get him. Boom. The Portal King strikes again. And when teams have brought in a high volume of transfers, even highly rated guys, LSU, for instance, brought in an elite transfer portal class. Well, they haven't done it since, last year. It's hard to get those guys to gel. It doesn't always work. A lot of them are playing together for the first time. Well, some coaches are more adept at that than others. More on that in a moment. The reason I have all the confidence in the world, except for one thing that's nagging in the back of my mind, that this is going to work, is Lane Kiffin brought in 30 transfers to Ole Miss last year and took a team that was really good, incredibly talented, to the college football playoff and would have had them, I believe, as well in the national semifinal. Maybe he gets them to the national championship game. So that type of pressure and expectation is going to be on Lane Kiffin and LSU, who might be collectively the biggest story in college football because of the way he departed Ole Miss. Now, the funny part about this, there are a couple humorous, ironic components to Lane Kiffin having done this as the proclaimed Portal King once again. And hard to argue, number one portal class. He hasn't just brought in Jordan Seaton. Hasn't just brought in Sam Leavitt. Sam Leavitt. Makes you think. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? The only way that I can see this going wrong is if Sam Leavitt doesn't stay healthy. That's it. That's it. I don't have qualms or questions about Lane Kiffin's ability to coach or win games in the SEC. I don't wonder whether he can make a huge transfer portal roster-laden group of guys work. No, he just did that. Now he's doing it with more talent. And remember, he's not taking over some bad, horrible, no good, awful situation. Brian Kelly and company just didn't coach the players correctly. The scheme wasn't good enough. The game planning wasn't good enough. The adjustments, those were the problems. LSU went to a bowl game. Now, please be very careful down in the comments with this comparison that I am about to make. But one of the reasons that I think Tosh Lupoi at Cal is going to do well is because he's got a quarterback who I know is good, and he's not inheriting some terrible situation. He's not having to tear it all the way down and then build it all the way up. Mario Cristobal at Miami had to kind of start on the ground floor compared to where these guys are beginning their new coaching ventures. So it's just a similarity, a comparison. I don't think Cal, who will be mentioned later on today's show, is in the same camp as LSU. I do think LSU is going to be very good as long as Sam Leavitt stays healthy. They brought in Hassan Longstreet former 5-star quarterback at USC, spent 1 year with the Trojans. I trust Lane Kiffin with just about any quarterback. His track record is very good, from Jackson Dart to Austin Simmons before he got hurt, and many other examples, and Trinidad Chambliss, of course. If Sam Leavitt doesn't stay healthy, all right, I can give Lane Kiffin half of a pass there. He should still be able to be good, but if he goes down and he's coming off an injury from 2025, that's it. That's the only way I see this going off the rails. So back to the point of irony and humor that I made earlier. Do you know who LSU plays first? If you don't know, just stop and think about it for a moment. I'll give you a hint. It's a return trip against the same mascot, different color scheme. That's right. LSU opens at home against the Clemson Tigers, the Portal King against the guy who wish it never existed. That dichotomy is truly incredible, isn't it? Look, Clemson's making efforts. They're trying, and then Dabo Swinney went off for 8 minutes about tampering and called out Pete Golding by name and said Luke Farrelly did this, that, and the other thing, and just went and read all of this stuff. We'll see if anything comes of it. I seriously have my doubts in that regard. But this LSU story and Lane Kiffin leaving Ole Miss the way that he did and all the pressure, I can't help but wonder if LSU fans aren't expecting to win as they always do, but even more so after watching Indiana go win the national championship. If Curt Cignetti can turn around Indiana, certainly Lane Kiffin should be able to turn around LSU immediately and get them to the college football playoff. If Sam Leavitt remains healthy, I will provide that caveat and will not expect any team to be able to just 2014 Ohio State their way to a playoff appearance and national championship. That was an incredibly unique and difficult circumstance. If you do it, more power to you. I'll put a bunch of feathers in your cap, a lot of credit, and other platitudes and metaphors and whatnot. But if Leavitt doesn't come back from the injury the way that LSU is hoping he will, then LSU fans might have to look back and go, well, it was the season where, to use a Friends reference, the one where Sam got hurt. That's what it will have been. It won't have been the season of what if we'd had Blake Baker with Jaden Daniels, or what if we'd had Mike Denbrock with Garrett Nussmeier. No, that's not what we'd be talking about right here. So that's the only thing that could hold LSU back. This transfer portal class is not overrated. It's incredibly loaded. I do think Sam Leavitt, who I'm a fan of, big Sam Leavitt fan here, one of the top transfer portal quarterbacks this cycle without question. I do think rating him as a 5-star, a little bit much. He might look that by the time the season comes to a close. Just right now, based on the body of work he's put together, which is no doubt impressive, I do think that's overinflating expectations a touch. But for a guy like Jordan Seaton, no. Or for a 4-star transfer like Eugene Wilson III coming over from Florida, no. That connection, Leavitt to Wilson, you might get used to hearing that a lot in 2026. And I mean, if you're excited for that Clemson game because round 2 and that's a high-profile matchup to begin the season, I love it. I love it. I'm here for it. Can't wait for that game and many others. You realize that is a college football fan base. We've got to wait 2 whole weeks after that before Lane Kiffin returns to Oxford. Oh, man. Cannot wait. Cannot wait. Leave your thoughts in the YouTube comments below. Hit me up on Twitter, however you want to get in touch. Josh Pate loves Notre Dame going into next year. It's hard to not love what Notre Dame just did. First, this episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday. Go Hawks. One last kickoff. Go Hawks. The final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, I hope you are, riding with the underdog, if you're a jinx, that's what I want you to do, or building one last same game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and makes the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, here's the deal. You bet just $5 and you get $200 in bonus bets if you win, just like that. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. Go Hawks. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started, and remember, go Hawks. Former Illinois defense coordinator Aaron Henry is expected to be the defensive backs coach at Notre Dame. I'm just letting that statement sink in for a moment. A Big Ten coordinator at a program that feels on the rise. Illinois this year, I picked to win 10 regular season games. They only won 8. And for me to say that about the Illini is a testament to everybody on staff, starting with Brett Bielema and working all the way down. Now, they also had a veteran quarterback in Luke Altmaier. Defense wasn't always sparkling this year. Still, Henry, very well-regarded guy in the coaching world, and wants to go be an assistant at Notre Dame instead of a full-time Big Ten, not just a Power 4 coordinator. We're not talking about some low-level ACC Big 12 school or something, or some nothing brand like Indiana, something crazy like that. No, he's at Illinois and decides, nope, want to go coach at Notre Dame. So, Josh Pate released his top 25 commissioners poll, whatever he calls it, and on the heels of this and other factors, right now in February, put Notre Dame at number 1. I think that's completely ridiculous. I am not somebody that believes preseason rankings should go away. I just think they should be done better. If a menu item at a restaurant that you like has 3 components to it, let's say you're at a barbecue restaurant, just hypothetically, and you order ribs with coleslaw and mac and cheese, and you order that same thing every time you go to the restaurant, and the ribs come out, and you know exactly what they are. I am a sauce kind of guy. Over dry rub, I am perfectly fine with both. When done properly, both are exceptional. So let's say the ribs come out, they're going to be good. And then you get the coleslaw, and coleslaw solid. Hard to mess up coleslaw. But the mac and cheese, every time that mac and cheese comes out, there are too many breadcrumbs on top. I feel like it's not cheesy enough. Why is there not a stringy connectedness to the mac and cheese here? Is the solution to just take the mac and cheese and throw it away and never eat it again? Or is the solution to give feedback to the kitchen and say, hey, you guys need to make a tweak on the mac and cheese. Make it a little bit cheesier. That's what I would like preseason rankings to be. Most things are done correctly. The fundamental purpose they serve is accurate. There are just flaws, the biggest one being too many AP voters get attached to their preseason top 25, can't put their egos aside. And if you saw my top 25 come out each week throughout the year, what I made a conscious effort to do was to reward teams based on the results on the field, because that's the way that it should be. A preseason ranking should be a combination of 2 things. And when I put together any preseason metric, it is going to involve both of these factors. What did you accomplish the year before? And what did you do in the offseason? That includes, what did you lose? How did you go about replacing that? Indiana, for instance, just had one of, if not the best season in the history of college football, going 16-0, first team in the modern era to ever do that. Big Ten champions, national champions. Beat a bunch of great teams along the way and beat Oregon twice by double digits. They lost the Heisman Trophy winner. They're losing their 2 outstanding receivers. If you want to knock them for that, fine. That's totally fine. I'm not going to do that because I know how good Josh Hoover can be. And I know that their transfer portal class is one of the best in the country, and I know how good that coaching staff is, and they're going to have the same head coaching coordinators for the third straight year. Rare thing in college football, and they've got the best defensive coordinator in the country in Bryant Haynes. So Notre Dame, based on last season, could very well wind up inside my top 10. Now, they opted out of the Pop-Tarts Bowl. I did not care for that one bit. They're not playing Notre Dame, or they're not playing USC. I don't care for that one bit either. USC fans were very hot and bothered at me the other day because I am upset with USC for also not making the game happen. And I am here to tell you that in this scenario, I'm the parent and the kids are fighting. I don't care who started it. I want it to end. Play the football game. Figure it out. I don't think USC really wanted to figure it out. Anyway, I don't know that Notre Dame did it. It's ridiculous that they are not playing. Notre Dame's schedule is worse off because of it. They're playing BYU, who's a darn good team, and I'm excited to watch that game. Should have seen that game in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Anyway, USC and Notre Dame not playing. Put them both on my bad side right now. Bringing this back to the Irish, though, and their program. Is this a good coaching move? Sure. Yeah, it could absolutely work out and do good things for the Irish. Or maybe Aaron Henry wants to go to a bigger school so that he can get more attention, try to go compete for a national championship because he knows that is what is in Notre Dame's sights for the 2026 season. I think it's reasonable. I don't think it's reasonable to make Notre Dame your number one team. They just lost the two toughest games that they had last year. Notre Dame lost to Miami. Notre Dame lost to Texas A&M. I know they were close. It's one of the reasons I never dropped them outside of my top 15. Once they actually, proved they were going to win football games, that is. But to make them number one, I think is ridiculous. Because they didn't prove that last year. Then they opted out of the Pop-Tarts Bowl. I might punish you on principle for that alone. That's as close to a national championship as anybody's going to play in. And Notre Dame played in the national title game 2 seasons ago. But they're too good for the Pop-Tarts Bowl. I did not care for any of that. So, do I think Notre Dame is really good? Yeah. I'm a big CJ Carr fan. I have been a big CJ Carr fan. I like Marcus Freeman a lot. What level of respect has Notre Dame, based on last year, earned going into this year? They've done some solid things in the offseason, but a lot of their thing is retention and development, which I can respect. Can be a rare thing to find in college football nowadays. Since CJ Carr took over, and I know it was his first year starting, lost the 2 biggest games. Won some other good ones. No doubt. USC last year was a good win. Pitt last year was a solid win. I think USC was significantly better in that regard. But what other program would get that level of respect of, I'm going to put you all the way up there? No. You got to earn it. And Notre Dame's going to have a chance to do that. It's why games are not played based on what I think. It's why games are played on the football field. And unfortunately, USC and Notre Dame won't be played. And I'm going to be upset about it for a very long time until the game resumes, which I hope it does one day. So, leave your thoughts in the YouTube comments below. Hit me up on Twitter, however you want to get in touch. Speaking of that college football playoff picture, who's in, who's out? I may have said some blasphemous things about Texas Tech. First, this episode brought to you by our friends at Mazda. This is Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who show there's more to the score than what's on the screen. This has been my go-to moment, and it keeps replaying in my head and literally on my screen all the time. On YouTube, where you might be watching the show right now. The Fernando Mendoza 4th and 5 quarterback draw. It doesn't get much better than that. That did more than just move the Hoosiers into the end zone. It propelled them to their first ever national championship. These remind us of what it really takes to raise the bar. It's the extra work off the field, dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, that grit, and I never quit mentality. Mazda puts that same passion into every model. Highlights make the reel. What it took to get there makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. Recently, I went on Brian Smith's show, The Portal Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We talked about a variety of things, including the college football playoff and who could fall out of a preseason top 8. Texas Tech fans, I apologize in advance, but I can't get Indiana there.
I am Brian Smith with Spencer McLaughlin. This is going to be one of the many trends that we're going to have talking about next year's college football playoff. We've got some fun questions for Spencer today. Going to put him on the hot seat, but he always delivers. But we are going to talk about the possibility of 2 Big 12 teams in the playoff next year. Is it realistic? Is it not? I don't know. We're going to get into that a little later in the show. We're going to talk about a team that Spencer knows very well in the middle of the show. Quack Attack, they actually have added a couple of players. We'll at least briefly get into that. We'll talk about them probably a little more next week. But the Ducks definitely going to be a playoff contender. But to start, playoff trends, Spencer, here's my take. There will be at least one team that nobody thinks has any shot to make the playoff. And Indiana just got to prove how that goes over the last 2 years. I don't know who it's going to be, but we're going to take a stab at it right here. And to that end, I have 3 questions. And I'm such a nice guy, I'm even going to put them on the screen for everybody on YouTube, and I'll read them off. Here we go. Look, the 6 best bets to reach the playoff next year. Just early lines, early thoughts from our guy, Spencer McLaughlin. I'm sure you're going to put the Ducks in that, but who else are you going to throw in for your other 5, brother?
Indiana has to be in there. I don't think you can have a reasonable playoff conversation and expectation without putting both them and Ohio State into the mix. I think Miami's got to be in there now that they've added Mensa, a quarterback from Duke, and I think what Mario has built is very sustainable. They've done well in the portal. I'm never picking against Kirby Smart and Georgia. And I think Notre Dame's got to be in there too. I think Notre Dame was a really good team this year, and I know Irish fans are not thrilled with what I've said over the last several months over some of the things that have happened, and that's perfectly fine. From a pure football standpoint, I think Notre Dame was a great team this year. They were not one of the most deserving teams based on the criteria to make the college football playoff. Next year, though, with their schedule and that chip on their shoulder after getting yanked around by the committee, I think they have to be in that conversation as well. And then Oregon is definitely there. Their schedule is a lot tougher than it was a year ago. The roster they have coming back, though, is just so strong. It's so deep. It's not just Dante Moore. It's their starting center. It's their top wide receivers. It's an NFL caliber tight end, even though they lost another NFL caliber tight end in Kenyon Sadiq, who's going to be taken in the first round. It's all 4 defensive linemen. It's bringing in Coy Parrish, the top safety in the portal. That Oregon roster is national championship or bust. And I think this year's team did very well, aside from the final Indiana game, considering how relatively inexperienced they were. It was a very young team, and Dante Moore is where that started. It's not where it ended. I think they're going to be right back in the playoff next year. So a lot of the heavy hitters for sure, but those programs just keep showing that their staffs are really good and that their rosters are really good. So I don't know that I would look outside of those bets and say there's anyone that's safer than that. I think teams that are kind of on that next level for me, Texas A&M, Alabama, Ole Miss. I think you can put BYU in there as well. Texas Tech, can they really follow up what they just did? We're going to find out. They've had a great portal cycle once again. Those are a lot of interesting questions, but I do start with Indiana. I don't think there's a big drop-off there, Brian. I really don't.
Okay, I want to come back to Indiana momentarily. There's one team, and I put Spencer on the spot here for those of you listening, that he didn't say. I'm just waiting to see if he remembers. Hint, they were in the national title game this year.
I said Miami.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay, then I just missed it.
Okay. Yeah, happens. No, I definitely think if Miami hadn't gotten Darian Mensah from Duke,
Right.
I would have said, no, your quarterback, even though they're not super reliant on quarterback play, I don't think you can be there with what they would have had. I mean, it would have been a mess.
Yeah.
They might have had to go and get the San Jose State guy, Winston Eget, who's, fine, whatever. I don't know if he's officially wound up at Duke yet. That's the expectation. But no, I think Miami's your clear-cut favorite in the ACC. Are we going to go through the rest of those? Yeah, by a significant. After Clemson flopped, I've got no faith in Dabo. He's not adapting to the portal very well. We've seen that. But can you throw those 3 questions back up there on YouTube again? Can I give you a dark, I mean a deep Duke level sleeper for the playoff?
Fire away.
The California Golden Bears.
I'm okay with that, actually.
I thought you might be, because they are in a conference that was just won by a 7-5 team.
I know.
I mean, that's where we're at. Virginia made the ACC championship game, and by the way, think about this: Mensa led Duke to the ACC title game and ultimately winning that conference championship game. Who does Cal have a quarterback? Oh, yeah. The guy that would have been the number 1 transfer portal quarterback in all likelihood had he not decided to stay in Berkeley. Tosh Lupoi has got the recruiting rolling there. He's not inheriting a disastrous situation. It's a dark sleeper, and they would probably have to go the Duke route, but they're playing in the ACC. I don't think that I haven't glanced at their schedule just yet. I'll pull that up real quick, but yeah, if you're looking for like a dark sleeper, Cal, a more reasonable or kind of mid-level sleeper, give me USC.
I think USC's got a chance to go 10-2 this next year because their O-line, D-line should be better.
Should be, yeah.
Maeva's a 5th-year senior. That does not hurt.
No.
Either. All right, now on the opposite end of this, to finish up segment 1, out of all the teams, whether it's your list, somebody else's, top 10, top 8, whatever you want to go with, who's the top preseason pick this next year that gets all the hype? That just like Penn State this year obviously flopped. I think we can safely assume Clemson in that same boat. Is there at least one of those, and who is it if you're going to pick one?
It pains me to say this. Right now, early glance, I'd lean towards Texas Tech.
Really?
I would. And the reason is I think Baron Morton got a little bit too much hate for the way that he played last year. I think Brendan Sorsby is good. Obviously, any of these teams are one quarterback injury away from just completely falling apart, even if it's only for a handful of games. I don't know where Ole Miss is getting picked. If they don't have Trinidad Chambliss, then they're going to be an 8-ish win team. And I think Pete Golding is doing perfectly fine. But if that doesn't work itself out, maybe it has by the time you're listening to or watching this show, Ole Miss would be a team that'll be picked pretty high that I could see falling off. But, Texas Tech had such a great season, and they were so good, and they were so dominant. And the first time that they got tested by a team that was better than them, they didn't score a point. So that makes me hesitate to I'm not saying they should have beaten Oregon. I don't think they should have. I thought Oregon was going to win the game, and then they did. I didn't think it was going to be 23-0. So that gives me a little bit of staff concern there. And look, falling off could be 8-4, and 8-4 in the Big 12 probably not going to get you ranked by the end of the season. But Texas Tech last year was just so dominant. They beat the living daylights out of everybody that they played. And I think that, my making this suggestion right now, which I'm sure will be wildly popular and largely agreed upon, of course, I think it's based on the fact that the Big 12 is leveling up more than Texas Tech is coming way down. And They haven't been there consistently. Joe McGuire just had one great season. It was really good. The roster he put together was amazing. But that was a place they had never been before, and now they're in the follow-up act. Now, Indiana rode their follow-up act to the national championship and going 16-0. Maybe that's what Texas Tech is going to do as a bounce back. But right now, if I had to pick one of a team that's likely to be in the top 8 for next year, I'd probably take Texas Tech.
By the way, I think they have the easiest schedule of any team that'll be ranked in the top 15 next year. Their schedule is.
It is. It is indeed. It is indeed not what you'd call a murderer's row. By the way, just really quick, I mentioned Cal as being that playoff sleeper. You ready for their schedule?
Okay, go right ahead.
UCLA, new head coach. At Syracuse, sneaky tough game. Syracuse will bounce back. Wagner, Clemson is at home. At UNLV, it's a Mountain West team, should be fine. Virginia Tech and Wake Forest. At SMU. At NC State. Bye. At Virginia, Stanford and Pitt at home.
They could go 8-4 without having many close games, really. SMU and a couple others, but if JKS is what we think he is, they'll be in every game. That's
what I'm saying, man. Not 9-3. 9-3 with only 2 conference losses. That's on the table. Always a good time with Brian. Hope you all enjoyed that chat. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. And until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.